Oh, oh, oh. Oh, 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 oh. Mwah, ah, ah, ah. Welcome to the Christmas episode of Wish We Were Then. Oh, oh, oh. Hey, everybody out there. This is the show that's been doomed to repeat history so that you may learn from it. That's right. We go back every year into the past. Every single year we go back to. That's the goal. And so far, it's gonna be tough at this rate. One per week. How many years have there been so far? Like, over 1,000, I think.
I think at least.
I am Trey. I'm here talking with my pal Mark. How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Oh, Merry Christmas, everybody out there, and happy other holidays. Which ones are the ones we're saying are okay to celebrate here on the show? We say you can celebrate Kwanzaa, Christmas, and winter solstice. That's it. Anything else?
No, Hanukkah?
Nope, it's outlawed now.
Is it? When this episode comes out, maybe.
I was going to say, this episode's going to come out in a while. We'll see what see how things go for them. But yes, it's the holiday season, and we are more than excited to be delving into a week in the past. This week we went back to, I guess, theoretically speaking, we experience Christmas every single year because we go back to the past and live that whole year, right? So
yeah, but it's not something we focus on very much, I have to say. I don't think we've ever even talked about it, up until this point.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, there's definitely been news stories that have happened in December, even at the end of December. So it's like we were there. We were just so busy. We had our little reporter's hats on. We were going around getting the scoop. We didn't have time to celebrate, That's just sad.
Everywhere.
Yeah, we became little gangsters, little cagneys. But this year we went back and we took some time to ourselves, for ourselves. We celebrated with loved ones, people we met and fell in love with over the course of the year that we went back to, because our family stays in the current day. Well, I'm so excited to talk about this week. It was a lot of fun. We went back to a very, very classic holiday year. That was the point of this week. We got lucky. There was that the thing that I was looking for ended up happening, because I just wanted to find a year that a Christmas movie was number one, and this was the first Christmas movie I looked up to think that was probably number one when it came out, and I was right. So that was cool.
Yeah, this was I don't know, not a very merry year, you know what I mean, besides this, but
yeah, I could
I tried to find Christmas themed stuff, and there wasn't too much except this.
I got a couple good things for Christmas. I'm happy about that. Let's get into it. While the snow falls outside on this bright Christmas day, let me tell you a story about two friends, Mark and Trey. These two friends were not concerned with the future, but much more where we've been. So they wished and they wished and they wished so hard they were then. That's right, they wished and they wished until they found that at last they woke up Christmas morning, but in the past. Red noses, red closes, red scares, McCarthyism, polio vaccines, which some think caused tism. That's right, gather round, for there's much more in store as we tell you all about the holidays. 1954. Oh, 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 oh. That's right, folks. We're going to tell you about a very, very classic Christmas year. This is that old-timey time, This is kind of, I guess, what people are, people go, oh, the good old days and stuff like that. They're talking about, this is what I picture, these 50s. Everybody was, I don't know, people seemed happy, even though, like you said, the stuff that was going on in the news and things didn't seem that great. But when I went on YouTube, I was able to find a litany of home movies from 1954 Christmas morning. So if you go on there, you can find a whole bunch of different families who have they just had these, I'm assuming these gigantic ass cameras that they would film their families on. And it was really cool. It was really neat to see these people just celebrating with each other back in the day, opening their presents. One of the videos I watched had a bunch of guys who were probably in their 20s, and it's they were all having fun, hanging out, and then by the end of the night, all the rest of the family's gone, and it's just these young dudes, all the kids and the parents are all gone, and it's just them hanging out in the basement in a bar, and they're all drinking and stuff, and I was like, oh, it seems cool. It's kind of relatable. And then it keeps cutting forward, and then by the end of it, I looked up and realized the entire bar was covered in empties. I was like, Dad, it's kind of cool to see these kids used to like just, rage like we did, It's like, Dad, those guys each at least
Things-
polished off a sixer.
History repeats itself, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of, you just think of it being like, oh, it was so wholesome back then. It's like people were always the same, really,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true.
It's an interesting thing to see when you just think of it as being, it's always romanticized, especially by older people, because they go, oh, back when I was a child, this sort of thing didn't happen. It's like, oh, bullshit, old lady. I saw some dudes getting drunk on Christmas.
Nobody got drunk when I was a girl.
Well, I think, I guess that's, we'll pepper in some Christmas as we go along.
Yeah,
but
I got a couple of things. Let's take it from one of the first big news stories that I have. The 17th of May, Brown versus the Board of Education is declared in the Supreme Court. It was in Topeka, Kansas, where radical segregation in public schools is unconstitutional. This landmark civil rights decision overturned the previous separate but equal doctrine established by the Peeves versus Ferguson case in 1896. So moving along in the whole civil rights thing, this is a huge kickoff in that direction, because I don't think that there was much like after this, like after the war. I think that this is when it starts to become very prevalent as after this.
yeah. Yeah,
They were still rebuilding. People were still rebuilding their lives from the war. I mean, it's so weird to think about how close we are to the end of World War II at this point
Yeah.
in 1954, because it plays such a factor into people's mindsets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's very pervasive. I mean, you just don't, we don't consider those things now, and just think that everyone was kind of living under the threat of something happening again. People are still reeling from what just happened, and then plus there's new concerns and stuff like that. And but yeah, the Brown versus the Board of Education was such a huge landmark decision, and like you said, leading forward would kind of help to overturn the separate but equal doctrine that had been established. And essentially, in the ruling of this case, they said, separate facilities are inherently unequal. So, and then it was like a 9-0 decision. So I thought that was good.
Yeah, unanimous. Yep.
Yeah. That was really kind of surprising, I think, because then you hear about all the aftermath. I mean, a lot of the southern states rallied against it, and their goal was to make this as difficult as possible to happen.
To implement.
Yeah, and it took a couple of years for the Supreme Court. Like, there were two more decisions that came after this that both were leading to the same thing. Because in this decision, there was nothing in place to say how they were supposed to do this, to desegregate. And so then there was Brown 2, which that one just basically told the school boards they needed to do it, expeditiously or what have you. And then the third time around, because then local and state governments were getting in the way, that's when the Supreme Court finally came in and said, this is a federal thing and you don't have the authority to try and squash this,
Yeah.
So it took a long time to, obviously, I mean, that kind of,
That's how that kind of stuff
Yeah.
goes sometimes, unfortunately. But that's the point of the Supreme Court, though. They're supposed to be like the unbiased law of the land, that it's like these people are selected because they're going to do what's right and not what's, how politics
Popular.
goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I think in the same kind of vein, like that we were talking about, as far as the war just ending and everything else like that, I think the other kind of big landmark story of the year is sort of everything going on with McCarthy and the Red Scare and all of that.
Yes.
There was a series of hearings conducted by Senator Joseph McCarthy. He was basically accusing the army of being soft on communism. And there was a bunch of hearings and back and forth and all this stuff of him kind of demonizing people and things. And on December 2nd, so at the end of the year, kind of ended up being that the Senate voted 67-22 to condemn him for conduct that tends to bring the Senate into dishonor and disrepute. So they were just like, he's stirring the pot and he shouldn't be doing that. And a lot of his accusations turned out to be false. So, it's just that fear mongering and jumping on something that maybe there is an issue. And maybe, and that was something too that they said, like, they did find out after the fact that there were infiltrations by communist parties and stuff into our government. But none of the people that were outed that actually ended up being, communist spies or what have you, were people that McCarthy had said anything about. So like everyone he said something about ended up being wrong, but they're not. I don't know if everybody, but the majority of what he was saying was kind of baseless. And then the people that did end up being the problems weren't necessarily the ones he was directing his ire towards. So, it was dangerous. It's dangerous to be
Well,
just stirring the
yeah.
pot like that.
Yeah. Well, maybe he had the right idea, but wasn't, like you said, wasn't like facing it towards the right people. But
No, and that's how these things start.
But this, and yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. This was huge for, I would think, a lot of time to come, because this put a sour taste in the public's mouth for the Republican Party, to be honest. So this was a year for the midterms. In the House, the Republicans lost 18 seats to the Democrats, losing control of the chamber. And then the Republicans wouldn't take the House back until 1994.
God damn.
The Republicans also lost control of the U.S. Senate, losing 2 seats to the Democrats, and Republicans would not take control of the Senate until 1980.
I had no idea that we were staunchly Democrat in the House and Senate for that long.
Yeah.
Dang, that's wild.
So, I mean, it just, he was a staunch Republican, and I think that this was a start of people having a bad taste for the warmongering and the fear-mongering that comes from the stigma of the Republican Party. So it just, I don't know, it's a lot. I didn't know that either. So this is all the things I've been thinking since I've been doing this research.
Yeah, that's interesting. But it's just kind of two sides of the same coin at the end of the day, in my opinion.
100%.
Two heads of the same hydra.
Yep.
And I think at the beginning of the year, his approval rating was at like 50% or something like that. And then by the end of the year, it dropped down to like 35, I think. And that's just pure support. So, and then the people that were actively against him, it went from being more people were supporting him, and there was a large number of people against him too, being the majority of people were opposed to him now. More than half,
Yeah. Well, I mean, rightfully so, I think.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to a little bit of lighter news. Disneyland has their groundbreaking ceremony on July 17th. This is when they swing the first hammer, when they're starting to build Disneyland, essentially.
Yeah, and they got it done pretty quickly, too.
1 year. On July 17th, 1955, it opened.
Really, this whole year, I kept just having flashes of Disney the whole time, and it's interesting because, I mean, Disney in general, like the movies from back then, especially as a kid, like that's your main touchstone to the 50s, Like when we were kids, there was a lot of 50s nostalgia still. So like we knew like Rock Around the Clock and Rockin' Robin and all these old, I think Rockin' Robin might be from the 60s, but we knew all these old 50s songs still. And like there were 50s themed diners and shit like that. But like kids watched Cinderella, you know what I mean? We watched things that were from back then still. And so the music from the time and going to Disneyland and like the way that things feel there and stuff. And Disney, I guess, too, is sort of like, they were at the forefront of entertainment. And so this was cutting edge and everything like that. So people modeled themselves after that. And then now when you go to Disneyland, it feels like a time capsule to the 50s in a lot of ways,
Yeah, for sure.
And they're trying to modernize it. And it's like, I prefer it when it's old, I think.
I was going to say, when we were kids, it felt that way. I can say I have not been to Disneyland in a very long time, so I can't really say. But when we were kids, yes, it did feel that way, that you were stepping back into the past, and everything did feel like this was not brand new. They're not brand new animatronics. They're still the same old shit that was there when it was first built, like all the skeletons and stuff inside of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and just like all that stuff just felt so old. Like I said, I don't know about it now, but that's what it felt growing up.
It's really interesting to think of the way that the world and like the pop culture and stuff like that worked at the time. That when you look at the lands that they have, there's Main Street, which is based on like an 1890s street. So it's like this nostalgia thing. So that'd be the same if we had the 50s street when you went in there. And they have the future world because they were all, it's like, retro futurism, the way that people in the past viewed the future, what they thought we would be doing now. So like in the 50s, they had, submarines and flying cars and all this. And even Autopia was like, look at the future. Cars. Oh, wow. Like Their idea
Yeah.
of what the future was going to hold is so different. And then the things that they thought were neat, like Frontierland and Adventureland, you know, that
Yep.
Adventure Tales were huge. Going, oh yeah, tales of swashbucklers in the jungle and pirates and shit like that, you know, and Frontiers. That's what's so crazy is that I never really, as a kid, I've mentioned before on the show, is I never really got the delineation between Frontierland and Adventureland. I was like, that kind of could be both Adventureland in my opinion, but it's that in the 50s, people were still very preoccupied with the tall tales of our nation and stuff like that, and that's what Disney wanted to make it be like. This is the land for Paul Bunyan and stuff like that. That's what, you know. And there's none of that there, really. Now it's just Davy Crockett, I guess, is kind of the tie to that. But that was a huge thing that they loved. They loved Westerns back then. They loved Tales of the Frontier, you know?
Yeah. For sure.
Well, I got one little quick blurb news story. On
Okay.
June 14th, the words "under God" were added to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh.
That
didn't know
kind of
that.
annoyed me, honestly. I can't believe that shit got added in so late. What the fuck? Why are we adding that
I was
in
surprised.
in a
Yeah.
modern day? What? You know?
Mhm.
I would have thought that was their originally, you know?
Yeah.
I was like, what? I don't know. What's separation of church and state, dude? What are we doing? You know? I don't have a problem with you if you want to have a nation under God in your mind or your heart or whatever else, but don't put that shit in the, you know, the like standardized language.
I think it was weird to be added in later just because so many of our founding fathers were like Christians.
Yeah.
So it's like why, or at least they believed in God. They were God-fearing men, you know? So like it's weird to me that it was added later.
No, it
and
seems
not
like something they
added
would have been
right
saying.
pretty
yeah.
much right away.
In my head, I
Yeah.
have images of George Washington saying this shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, me
But,
too. But it's
yeah.
just because we grew up in a time that it was so ingrained in it already that we didn't even. I mean, our parents grew up saying it this way.
yeah, it's interesting though to think of older people that grew up saying, "One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." You know.
Yep.
Got any other fun news? I got one fun story, really fun.
Just because you mentioned it earlier, on September 30th, the first nuclear submarine was launched by the U.S. Navy.
Oh, that's cool.
And, yeah, just because you mentioned the future and submarines and all.
Yeah,
I had
that
it
was a
written
big like focal point of the Tomorrowland in Disneyland was the submarine ride.
Yep.
That ended up being dormant for decades until they brought it back as the Finding Nemo ride. And
makes sense.
and also this year you have a lot of kind of sea-based science fiction movies that we'll talk about in a little bit.
But yeah, this was also just part of the height of, or just like the escalation of the Cold War.
Yeah. Yeah, nuclear powered subs, you know.
Scary stuff.
It
Yeah,
seems
you can
like
just
really
launch-
intense.
You can just launch a nuke from anywhere in the world. That's what that means.
Yeah. Yeah, it's scary. It really was, you know. And that's another thing that, again, the movies of the time will talk about when they reflect that. My last little fun news story here is that I miraculously, after, like, really last night at, like, 3 in the morning, I got my hands on a copy of, somehow, I hadn't found it until then, and I just weaseled my way into this copy of Billboard magazine from 1954. I sent the link to you, I think, this morning.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you had time to look at it. It is dense. I didn't really get much chance to look over it.
I opened it up and I was like, I can't look at this right now.
It's insanely dense, and I used it to do all of my research for the music, which I'll talk about when we get there because it was intense. I had to do a bunch of stuff, but I had the magazine and I was looking through it. I thought I got to read at least one of these articles in here, you know. And so I randomly, I mean, there's so many pages in here, and there's so many articles per page. It's like a newspaper, not really a magazine. And I just decided to randomly, like, was going through, and I found a section called Hocus Pocus. So I was like, I'll see what this is. And mostly they were talking about, like, the beginning of it was all talking about new movie deals that, you know, this studio is going to do this, and these people are building here, and this star got signed to a contract with this thing. And then they talked about the music and this is what DJs are doing, and here's what the jukebox, blah, blah, blah. So the Hocus Pocus section, I assume it's going to be about music or something like that. Turns out, the Hocus Pocus section of the 1950s Billboard magazine tells you all of the magician-based news going on in the country.
That's so cool.
It was wild. It was like, this guy started a residency here. This guy started fucking teaching this school here. And it was just like little tiny stories that were that was it. It was basically just like, hey, here's this magician who was here. And I was like, that's so crazy. They were a part of, like, at the time, there wasn't a consensus on, we like
They
music
weren't
and we like
nerds
movies.
yet.
Yeah, it was just like, they're entertainers. They're part of the entertainment world. Like, they're the same thing as stand-up comedians, as musicians, as actors. You know, they go on stage and they entertain you. It's one of the couple forms of entertainment we have. You know, and they
That's
had a
super
whole ass
cool.
section. It was pretty cool. One of the parts in it told about a big convention for all the magicians. That was, I can't remember exactly where it was, but the really cool thing in there was that it told about the night before party, which was themed, and it was a gay 90s party. So I had to look into that, and I was like, hold on, is that what it's saying, what I think it's saying? So in the 1950s, and actually before that, I guess since like the 30s really, there was this nostalgia for the 1890s. So they all, you know, it's like the same way that people do 80s theme parties and stuff like that. Like, they just did a party based on the 1890s, and people dressed up like that, and they all celebrated, you know, the 1890s. I thought that was really interesting.
That's so cool.
Yeah, you know, again, people are the same no matter what time you're in.
Yep.
And it's just so, we definitely don't think of that when you think that far back, you know?
Yeah. Damn,
Yeah,
that's
they're-
crazy.
They're all nostalgic for the good old days, you know? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
When life was simpler, right?
And that was, and so I looked into the 1890s nostalgia, and it's something that's very weird because it's like, yeah, half the country was just decimated. And then, but in the North, there was a lot of new money, and those people were having the fucking time of their lives. You know, it was the easiest time in the world for them.
Yeah, I believe it.
And so, you know, it's all these rich, you know, waspy people being like, remember back in 1890? Oh my God, we had it so good, you know?
I'm sure they wish they were then.
Yeah, exactly. That's so, yeah, that blew me away. That's kind of a prevalent theme throughout this year, is the nostalgia that people had for the olden days. And I think that's so weird. Again, I guess it makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. It's just something that I wasn't, you know, aware of, that there was every single year people pine for the past.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny because, I don't know, I feel like I kind of got a different sense of like them looking to the future. Like everything that was happening was like revolutionary as far
Yeah.
as like technology and stuff goes. But
Yeah, and that's
I guess
definitely what we talk about when you think of this time. Yeah.
but I guess you're right. Everyone is always wishing they were then.
Yeah. I mean, it's
You
the same
know,
thing as
but-
now. I mean, we have amazing things going on now, and here we are doing this show.
Yeah, that's true.
And yeah,
Maybe,
that's really
maybe we'll do 1890 one day. Also. And they're going to be wishing they were in the Civil War.
yeah.
They're like,
Yeah,
I remember
that's crazy.
1860, 1859 before the Civil War.
Oh man, those are the good old days. It's like, what were you pining for? All right. Okay. Well, shall we move on through now to, or you have any other news stories?
Oh, actually, there's something I wanted to say. On Christmas Eve, Vietnam split into two nations, dividing into the North communist and then the Southern capitalists. So
Wow.
We'll probably get to that later, I think.
That's crazy. Also, you know, huge thing for the future. I mean, so many things setting up the national stage right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Merry Christmas to Vietnam. I guess the Southern Vietnam is probably happy about that.
100%. Yeah. That's what they were fighting for.
Yeah, because they got their Christmas wish. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to the food portion of the evening, shall we?
Yep. What do you got?
All right, in the fast food landscape this year, we have a couple of big things happening. First off, Danny's Donuts opened in Lakewood, California by Richard Jezik and Harold Butler. They changed their name in 1959 to Denny's. So first it was Danny's Donuts. They switched to being a coffee shop in 1956 and then became Denny's in 1959. Because I think there was a Danny's Coffee or something like that. That was a local place, so they changed it to Denny's.
Man, I wish they still did donuts, kind of.
Yeah, that's true. I guess you're right. That would be nice to be able to go in and just get a donut and some coffee.
Yeah.
Donut shops aren't really a thing anymore like that. You know, coffee shop, donut houses.
No, it's true.
You have them in
Where
LA a little
where
bit, but
they have a couple around here still, but like the only ones that are open are like the 24-hour ones because they have that going for them, I think, you know?
yeah. Yeah, donut shops in the country, like outside of California, aren't that prevalent. I think I told you before, in Wisconsin, there's no donut shops. You have to go to a
Well,
you have to go to a bakery to get donuts.
well, that's largely because of like Cambodian immigration.
Yeah.
They like one of I forget his name, but he opened up one of the like a donut shop, and he's the one that started the pink boxes. And
Yeah.
just having the pink box got him so popular that he was able to franchise like donut shops out to other Cambodian immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
So that coming to California, and that's why they're so prevalent here.
Yeah, and that was something that I remember hearing about that because I read an article that was like, why are donut boxes pink in movies and on TV when they're not like that in real life? And I was like, what the fuck are they talking about? And then I was like, that's so weird because it was when I was younger before I left California. And then, yeah, and the article was just talking about like, have you ever wondered why they're always pink in movies and stuff? It's because they're in California where they shoot, and in California, boxes are pink because of that story. And I was like, that's the weirder thing to me is that they're not pink everywhere else. And then I kind of realized, I guess it is sort of weird that every single donut shop uses the same pink boxes, you know?
Yeah, I mean that's just it became once it got popular, it became like the thing to do.
Yeah, out in the rest of the country, they mostly use white boxes, and they're way flimsier. And they're
Interesting.
like flat and long as opposed to being tall, like squares. They're like
Oh,
rectangles.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like Krispy Kremes.
Yeah, it bums me out. I don't like them. I really love those pink boxes. They just, I
Ye-
mean, you know.
You could
Also-
stack them in there.
Yeah. Also, I will say, hands down, California has the best donuts there are. Like everywhere else, they're really not that good. It's like a weird thing. You wouldn't think that it would be that much different to make donuts, but they're so disappointing every time I've had them in Texas and Wisconsin, Chicago, anywhere I go. They're always not that good.
Hey, maybe you should start a donut shop.
I've thought about it. I'm like, how much goes into this? And it's like, turns out a fuck ton.
No, it does. You got to be there
Yeah.
up early, and it takes a
Yeah,
lot.
I have looked into it before.
Being a baker is a lot. It's a
Yeah,
hard job.
it's nuts, and you don't get a lot of money. I mean, donuts are so cheap, you know.
Yeah, you got to sell a shitload of them.
But you know, if you love what you're doing, right?
Yep. All right, I got a foodie one. On December 4th, the first Burger King restaurant was established in Miami. The Burger King restaurant was launched by the founder Kenneth J. Kramer and his wife's uncle, Matthew Burns. It opened as Insta Burger King, and then the franchise actually just shortened its name, which a lot of people do, I think. But they were famous for their flame-broiled signature way of making the meat.
Yeah, that's cool. Burger King's good. I like their burgers. I think they're better. Like the patties and stuff, I like them more than other places because of that. I think.
What about McDonald's? That's their like direct competition.
Yeah, McDonald's patties
or
aren't like not.
Burger King.
Yeah, the burgers themselves, like the actual patties, are better at Burger King. I think.
Okay, I don't know.
But-
I don't ever go to Burger King. I can't remember the last time I even went to one.
I like that they were Insta Burger King. It's totally like, dude, you pick one, Insta Burger or Burger King. You don't have to pick both, you know? I think they're both good names. But Insta Burger King is too much. It's a hat on a hat. It's a crown on a
Yeah.
crown, for God's
Yeah.
sake. And we got another restaurant that was founded this year. Shakey's Pizza was founded in Sacramento by Sherwood Shaky Johnson and Ed Plummer. Shaky Sherwood Johnson was so named because of nerve damage from malaria he had suffered in World War II.
It's fucked up. It's a fucked up name.
Exactly.
Fucked up nickname. Your friends are not your friends, dude.
I know. Hey, come on, Shaky, get in here and make us another pizza, dude. Like, come on.
He was their bartender. Like,
Like, let me get some more Parmesan cheese on that. Yeah, don't stop. This is the first ever franchised pizza place, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, Shakey's is kind of, I don't know how prevalent they are in the rest of the country. They're scattered around Southern California. When they first opened up, the ovens weren't ready, And so they just served beer over the weekend. So they were just basically a bar. And then when Monday came around, Shaky took all the money that he had made from selling beer and bought ingredients to make pizzas. And this was the really cool. This Shaky just had some more interesting history here. Shaky himself played Dixieland jazz piano to entertain the patrons. And he also hired the Silver Dollar Jazz Band, which was like a local jazz outfit. And jazz historian K.O. Eklund has given this band the credit for the jazz revival in Sacramento that extended to the formation of the Sacramento Traditional Jazz Society. So Shaky reformed the musical scene of Sacramento and made jazz be this popular thing there. And it's not just, this band was involved with this, but Shaky himself he's in the American Banjo Museum because he played banjo at the restaurant and helped popularize that among the Sacramento people. And Shakey's also became known outside of just Sacramento, not for its pizza, but for its jazz program, sponsored on a regional radio network.
You know how much better they would do if they still had that?
Yeah, right? That's so cool that they were like the musical pizza place. And
They need to bring that back.
now the only pizza place we have left is Chuck E. Cheese.
It's true.
And those songs
and
aren't
those
they're not
things
that
are
good.
and those things are creepy as fuck.
They're not inspiring anybody to start getting into a band with their dog and bird.
Their pet bear.
Okie dokie. Here are some more beverage-based news items. The University of Puerto Rico professor Ramon Lopez Izari invented a new, improved method of extracting coconut cream. So, beforehand, I guess it was a hard ordeal, and you usually just use coconut water or coconut milk or whatever, but this was somehow, I don't know what the science is, but he got the cream out of there. And in the Caribbean Hilton Hotel, the bartender Ramon Manchito Marrero created the pina colada the same year.
Oh, okay. From the coconut milk or cream?
Yes, he used the cream to make the crop.
Do you think he just heated it up? I'm confused. I want to know how he did it.
I mean, it's the same way that they do it now. It's Coco Loco.
Coco Lopez?
Coco Lopez, thank you. Yeah, Coco Lopez, that's what he invented. So he the coconut cream that still is around and shit. He was the Lopez of Coco Lopez, Ramon Lopez Izari. There's always a lot of discord. There's always some discord when it comes to where actually a drink was invented. People claim it was at this hotel, it was at this bartender, blah blah blah. But the hotel was presented with a proclamation from the governor of Puerto Rico in 2004 celebrating its 50th anniversary. So he was kind of officially saying, we recognize this hotel as having invented the drink in 1954.
That's cool. So Coco Lopez is made from coconut cream, sugar, and water. The process involves soaking grated coconut in hot water and extracting the cream, which is blended with sugar to create a smooth, creamy product.
Oh, okay.
So he just scraped them and soaked them in water.
Yeah,
and
so it's
added
like
sugar.
okay.
I mean, I don't know why I thought it'd be more elaborate than that.
I was picturing it with like a big syringe, just like somehow the coconut's filled with cream, and then when you open it, it just turns to water. I was like, I don't know what's going on in there.
It just shakes it really hard.
There were a couple of precursors to the drink. In 1922, Travel Magazine had a recipe with sugar, ice, lime, pineapple juice, and Bacardi. And then in 1950, New York Times said, drinks in the West Indies range from Martinique's famous rum punch to Cuba's pina colada. Rum, pineapple, and coconut milk is what it said it was.
Yeah.
So, but the actual official, like the way we still make them today, invented by the bartender Ramon Manchito Marrero.
That's really
54.
cool. That's really cool.
How do you feel about pina coladas? You drink them?
There's a time and place for them. I like them
Hell yeah, there is.
when it's like beachside, you know what I mean? Just like relaxing on vacation.
Yeah.
I'll drink pina coladas and lava flows and give me all the pineapple, and I don't even care.
They're like
But if
awesome for that.
if I'm just going down to the local bar, I'm not like, you got a blender back there?
Oh, I am constantly. Hey, what's going on, Bubba? Yeah, it's like, oh, my friend here will take a Budweiser and I'll take a pina colada. And then in the same vein here, we have the production started on the first bottles of Maker's Mark.
Okay.
They were finally bottled in 1958, so this is where they first started producing them. Then they aged them, obviously, as one does. So, but this is where they first
For
started.
4 years, that's not a very long age.
No, I think that this was the first go around. This guy, Bill Samuels, is the one who developed it, and it kind of seemed like he was just trying to get a product out there, to be honest. So yeah, he probably should have aged him longer. The reason why I say that though
Worked
is
out for him.
because yeah, he developed 7 different mashes that were all possible ones he was going to use, but he didn't have time to distill them and then age them and see which ones. Didn't have time. I don't know what. That's just what the information was presented to me as, and like what he just didn't want to, is what it kind of seems like.
Well, or he didn't have like the money to like, I can't wait for 15 years
Yeah.
for this whiskey. Like I kind of need it now because I'm gonna run out of money and I'm gonna go broke, and so
Yeah.
I could imagine time was
so-
a factor.
Because he didn't have the time to do that, he just baked a loaf of bread out of each of these mashes, and then just said which one smelled and tasted the best is the one he was going to use. And he ended up picking the loaf that did not have any rye in it. So his bourbon was unique in that way, because most bourbons typically contain rye in the mash, and his does not.
Not a fan of rye whiskey.
All I know is it makes
The,
itself taste sweeter, makes the band sound better, makes the girl a little brighter. I don't remember. The Punch
Something like
Brothers.
Great band.
Yeah, there's like 7 people out there who were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And 2 of them were the Punch Brothers. All right, I am prepared to now move on. See, we're talking about the way that the technology is affecting these drinks. What is the technology behind Coco Lopez? What other technological advancements were there in the year 1954? Here's another one that I am extremely satisfied to be able to bring to your attention is in the video game news in 1954. William Brown and Ted Lewis created a pool game using the MidSAC computer that was developed at the University of Michigan. This is an actual video game that came out in the year 1954. It was basically a pool cue on the screen. It was like a little round screen with a rectangle on it they drew onto the screen with marker, but the parameters were built into the screen too, and there were pockets on it, and then there were how many pool balls? A full rack of 15 balls and the cue ball, and you controlled the joystick with a little dial that you turned left and right to change the pitch of it, and you controlled where it was on the screen, and you aimed it at the ball, and then hit it, and it measured how fast you hit it, and then it would keep track of it hitting the other balls and then bouncing off the walls, and it knew where the actual pockets were, and if they went into the pockets, the ball would disappear.
How much did that cost?
I don't know. It was really just built as a way to show the power of the MidSAC computer. So it was kind of a research thing more than it wasn't like a video game that they were trying to get out there that people were going to play.
Like marketed.
Yeah, no, this was just them kind of showing, look what a computer can do. It's keeping track of all this shit. And it was just like it was the first time that there was ever a game, because there were precursors to this too. But this was the first time there was everything that had updated real-time graphics. Like you were controlling what happened on the screen. It updated the graphics 40 times per second. So
This is crazy.
yeah, it's really, really mind-blowing that this happened way back then. You can't really find videos of it in action. There have been people who have recreated it, so you can see how it worked. And then you can find some pictures of them.
Makes sense that they wouldn't be able to take videos of it.
But yeah, it's really, really fascinating. I kind of knew that there were video games because through this podcast, doing research, that I know that the earliest video games are way earlier than you would think. But this is kind of the earliest example of what they would go on to become. Because before this, they were more like just controlling things, and that sort of was a game. But this was, you're playing pool. You're playing pool on the screen, you're controlling it up.
That's so crazy. The way it looked, too, wasn't bad.
No, yeah, it looks like pool games would look for forever.
Yeah, for a long time to come. It was just slower than what you would expect. That's pretty much how it went. It's crazy. So what do you play your video games on? Give you one guess. A TV.
TV.
And
Okay.
we're making them in color now. The first RCA color TV manufactured. It was 12.5 inches, and it was priced at $1,000 market price. It was a milestone for consumption from broadcast technology. It would just boom, and most people wouldn't get them until like the mid 60s.
$1,000
in
bucks.
reality. Yeah,
It's a lot back then.
It's a lot. So they didn't become affordable until, like I said, like mid 60s.
That's really
and
cool.
then they wouldn't change until later too.
Yeah,
Like,
we've
obviously, it was all
discussed
black
some of
and white.
those.
But it's like, so what were these people watching it on? What are they watching besides the very few movies that came out? Maybe how did they get those though?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like everything is just broadcast because I mean you can still watch black and white on colored TVs now. So I guess it's just like everything was black and white except for the couple of people who were doing it in color.
Yeah, you would just have to get lucky.
We got some interesting sports news back in the day. Most of my stuff centers around the NBA, just because I kept finding more and more interesting news stories. Because I'm sure if I looked at any other sport, I would have been just as interested because were so different than they are now. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of what was going on in the NBA at the time, there were 9 teams at the beginning of this year. The East was the New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics, the Syracuse Nationals, the Philadelphia Warriors, and the Baltimore Bullets. Obviously, most of those teams would go change or move cities, change their names and stuff like that. And in the West, you had the Minneapolis Lakers, the Rochester Royals, the Fort Wayne Pistons, and the Milwaukee Hawks. Again, a bunch of teams that have moved. And the Royals, who were in Rochester.
Where were the Pistons?
Fort Wayne. That's in Indiana, I believe.
It just makes so much more sense that they were from Detroit.
Because
of
the motor
damn,
industry.
I never knew that. Dang, that's great. I just assumed because of the perfect name for Detroit.
Right.
That's where they were from.
I wonder if Fort Wayne was like initially an automotive hub.
Yeah, maybe. Detroit's not far from
Indiana?
Indiana, right? Am
I don't
wrong?
know. I'm bad at geography. And then, like the Lakers were in Minneapolis. That name used to make sense because there are many
Bunch of
lakes.
lakes.
There. And then they moved to California where there are actually no lakes.
Yeah, we have to make all of our lakes here.
Yeah, all of the lakes in Southern California are man-made. So they moved to the one place that there just aren't lakes.
But going back to what we've discussed before, every time we look at these NBA championships, it's the Lakers, and even in Minneapolis, they won this year.
Oh, they did?
Yeah.
They introduced the shot clock this year to make the game more interesting.
It's cool.
Yeah, that was a great decision.
Yeah, it's really early.
Yeah, it is. On October 30th, the NBA premiered on NBC for the first time. It was a game between the Boston Celtics at the Rochester Royals. And this was crazy interesting, too, because I said earlier that there were 9 teams at the beginning of the year. That wasn't the case throughout the year. On November 27th, the Baltimore Bullets folded and dropped out of the league completely after a 3-11 start. So they just were like, "We're getting our asses kicked. We're tired of this." I don't know what all went into it, but this is the
Maybe
last time a
there's,
team
like,
is just straight up folded.
Maybe it's like, we're not going to fund you guys anymore. You know what I mean? Maybe that was the money thing, like, you guys suck.
Yeah, but they also,
Cool.
I think, they moved to Washington later because they became the Washington Bullets.
Maybe someone else just picked up the franchise.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. They just full on stopped being a team in the middle of the season. I think that's so
It's
crazy.
crazy.
But it also makes sense because it's like, why were there 9 teams? That's a weird number.
Yeah.
8 makes it a lot rounder, obviously. That's it for my NBA news. The only other sports news I have is that on August 16th, the first issue of Sports Illustrated was released.
Oh, that's cool. The Philadelphia Athletics relocated to Kansas City. They were part of the American League. So, and then I'm sure, obviously, they would move again, but
That's the ones that would become the Oakland A's?
yeah, I think
Oh,
that,
okay.
I think so. I'm not really sure, but that's what happened this year.
Yeah, who
But,
knows? How are they the same? We talked about that before. It's like, what?
Yeah, what makes them the same? Anyway,
Because I said so, motherfucker. That's why. I don't ask questions.
because this is where the money goes. That's why. But for the rest of the sports world, there was actually the FIFA World Cup, and West Germany won this year.
Oh yeah, okay.
So, and then for the rest of our champions, the World Series champions were the New York Giants. The NFL champions, which I'm pretty sure that's not what it was called at this time, but that's the way it was presented to me, was the Cleveland Browns.
Wow.
Yeah.
Last time the Browns would win a game.
So you guys can, all you Browns fans, rejoice. The NBA champions, like I said, was the Minneapolis Lakers. Stanley Cup champions were the Detroit Red Wings.
Another one that's always being said.
Yep.
Yeah. That red logo that they have. Everyone recognizes that red logo. You know what else everyone recognizes that red? The hair of Lucille Ball. Because I Love Lucy was the top-rated television show in 1954. I Love Lucy pulled in way more ratings than anyone else did for the year 1954. So, I mean, she's just miles ahead of the competition. I Love Lucy's number 1. Number 2 is Dragnet. Number 3 is You Bet Your Life. And number 4 was The Jackie Gleason Show. All shows that I've heard the name of before but never watched.
You never
Except for
watched
I Love Lucy.
I was like, you never watched I Love Lucy?
I
watched
Love
that.
Lucy.
Yeah, I watched that all the time when I was a kid. Talk about us growing up with kind of 50s nostalgia.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of cartoons and stuff I've watched too.
Yeah, I loved that show when I was a kid, man. It was so good. That's a good show. I'm gonna rewatch that. I did not put it. I almost did, but I ended up. This was a very research heavy year. It was less. I was less able to jump into fun pop culture stuff as I would have liked because I was doing so much other stuff. A couple debuts this year were Lassie, very famous show about a dog, as well as The Adventures of Rin Tin Tin, very famous show about a dog. And then you have Davy Crockett, about the frontiersman, Annie Oakley, about the frontierswoman.
I watched Annie Oakley.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Wow,
It was actually a good show. I thought it was cool. The stunts and all that stuff were actually really dope. They're like actually on a train, riding next to it, filming it, while these dudes are like fighting on it. It was super cool. Yeah,
that's really cool. So it's like a Western kind of?
Yeah, it's a Western. Yeah,
that's cool.
It's based on Annie Oakley is a real person. She was like
a sharpshooter,
deadliest
right?
gun in the West or whatever. Yeah.
Then in the terms of space exploration TV shows, you got Flash Gordon and Rocky Jones' Space Ranger. So that was going on at the time. I've always wanted to watch Flash Gordon.
I had never watched it.
The movie especially was kind of my point of reference for it with the Queen songs, but I've never seen it. I always wanted to. And then variety comedy shows. You had Caesar's Hour, starring Sid Caesar, and the Spike Jonze Show, not starring the guy who would go on to direct Jackass, but a different Spike Jonze.
I figured.
He's not a million, and he wasn't zero back then, and he wasn't a baby with a TV show. A very cool debut this year was Vampira. She's like the precursor to Elvira, and you can't find any of the show, unfortunately, because it aired live, and it was only an L.A. County show. So it doesn't really exist, but you can find a couple little clips here and there. So I got to watch the intro of it, of her like walking down a foggy hallway, and then she screams into the camera. And she's very much like Elvira. I was surprised to see this was a thing back then. She presented old horror movies, and she would tell literally the same thing. She just came in, she would tell kind of jokes. Like I saw a clip of her explaining her cocktail, and she was like, a lot of people ask, should you put a cherry or an olive in here? But both would disintegrate immediately. So you can put an eyeball in if you have an extra one laying around. It was just very like a tame version of Elvira, But I was surprised though that people were like interested in like the kind of macabre, kooky sort of feel of that, And there's some more of that too than I thought. I guess people were. Again, I'm just you have the feeling of everyone being so wholesome and stuff like back then, but people liked the creepy and the macabre more than I realized.
Yes, I thought that too a little bit with at least one of the songs I heard on our list. It's like, this would be good for a Halloween playlist.
Oh yeah, you got to tell me which one because I always put some stuff on there.
We'll get to that. Yeah, I watched Annie Oakley, and then I try to watch a different I try to watch a few of them, but they're hard to find.
Yeah.
But actually, there's a lot of really good ones there actually that are on like Tubi and Pluto.
Yeah, those are always the best for finding old stuff for sure.
Yeah.
One show that I did get to watch that premiered this year, I found the episode on YouTube. It was a show called Medic. And this was the first series to focus on the medical procedures that happened in a hospital. There were like, I kind of only found 2 examples of medical drama TV shows that existed before this. And they both just kind of mostly only talked about the doctors and like their own relationships with each other at the hospital and their professional lives and then their personal lives. So this was the first time that they focused in on what actually was happening in the hospital. So I watched an episode that was a Christmas-themed episode. That was fun.
Nice.
It was called Red Christmas, and it's about a guy who he comes in and he hit a woman. I think they were both driving, and he was wasted from a Christmas party, and he hit this girl, and she's the whole episode they're like trying to make sure she's okay, and like the doctor is really like kind of trying to make the dude who did it feel bad, and then at the end it turns out that she was blinded, that she's going to live, but her eyes were, according to the doctor, completely macerated. I was like, geez, what a way to put that. And that she's never going to see again, and he would like the man to be there while he breaks the news to the girl's mother. And the guy just is like, well, I got to go, and he like walks out. And I was like, he's allowed to fucking leave? Yeah, he just...
Damn.
It was like, you need to feel bad about this. And the guy's like, I can't. I was like, no, you need to go to jail. What the hell?
Yeah, what the heck?
But then at the end, it was a really well written show. Like the dialogue back then was so good, you know.
Yeah.
And he's doing a voiceover and he's explaining like, on Christmas, this is the beginning. This is the first case we see today, and it's going to be like this all day. And it's not based on the negligence of one person, but based on like the weaponized negligence of everybody, that we're all allowing this kind of stuff to happen. And yeah, I don't know. It was a really good episode. I really
actually had like a good message.
Yeah, and then he said there's costs in the damages to property. There's cost in the lost hours that the doctors have to do where we're not able to focus on curing people with diseases or focus on finding cures for other things. We have to fix someone else's mess. And he said there's also cost that goes into the attorney's fees. So when he said that, I was like, okay, thank God. At least this guy's going to get some sort of retribution,
Yeah.
I was just like, damn, you can just hit somebody and nearly kill him in the 50s and it doesn't matter. But no, he did get some sort of comeuppance. The filming was done at actual clinics and hospitals, often with real-life doctors and nurses as a part of the cast. And the episodes were based on case histories from the Los Angeles County Medical Association. So these were real stories and real people. And then finally, the last thing I was going to point out about the show was that the Christmas episode opened and closed with a lengthy commercial for Saran Wrap. And that was really neat to see because it was just like, hey, everybody, you can use Saran Wrap. It's a magical new invention that like clings to the side and keeps your food fresh. And you can actually see what's inside the bowl you're storing instead of it being, you don't have to use rubber bands and strings anymore. And it was just really neat to see that,
That is cool.
Space age technology. Yeah, and your holiday pies and all this kind of stuff. There was holiday dinner laid out on the table and stuff. My final TV thing I'm going to say is that the Disneyland TV show came out this year. It was a way for Walt Disney.
I tried to find that. Why isn't that on Disney Plus?
I watched it. I can't remember if I found it on YouTube or I guess it would have been on YouTube. Disney Plus, they do have the later version of that same show, but they don't have the original. I don't know why. But it essentially was him just saying, hey, look, I'm building Disneyland. I watched the first episode, and he was like, hey, I got this idea. It's going to be fucking crazy. He explained the lands. He explained their reasoning, which made me go, that's what Frontierland is different than Adventureland. Because he's like, we like the American frontier and the old tales of Paul Bunyan, And so I was like, I see now. And each episode would kind of like, in the future, was going to be like, here's the episode from Tomorrowland, and we're going to tell you about technology from the future. Or we're going to take you behind the scenes of our new movie, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So, like, it was just, every week was a different way to tie it into something Disney-related. Yeah. It was pretty neat.
That's cool.
The first episode was them showing, like, hey, we have, for Adventureland, they talked about how they have camera crews stationed all over the world capturing different animals for their documentaries, And then in the Frontierland thing, they talked about the legend of Davy Crockett, and they showed the guy who's going to be playing Davy Crockett in the new show, and they had him play a song. And they played the theme song, the Davy Crockett.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a neat
I like
show.
that. I got one more TV thing. It is Christmas related. The black and white version of A Christmas Carol was a 54-minute.
Oh, yes.
Like, not like they said it's not a musical, but it did have a lot of emphasis towards the singing and music side of it. But yeah, it was that's what was playing on your black and white TV if you can afford
Yes,
a
yeah,
color one.
it was a TV movie.
Yes.
Did you watch it? I was going to, and I forgot.
No, but I've seen that version before.
It looked familiar, but there are so many damn versions of A Christmas Carol that I didn't know if I'd seen it actually.
I have to say, I mean, the only reason I've seen this one before.
Although I
could tell
can't think
by
of
the,
any
by
with
the
songs.
picture. But there was no, not too many. No, nowadays, yeah, but back then this was a new thing, I think. I had the like 1934 version or something when I was a kid on VHS.
Yeah, I've seen
So
that one.
everyone that's not that one, I'm like, this sucks.
Yeah, I know the one you're
Just-
talking about, I think, because I recognize the guy, the Scrooge on it. He's a famous person, isn't he? Isn't he a Barrymore or something like that?
I'm not sure. I'm not really good with actors, especially from that era.
Alrighty. Now, moving on. Something that we don't do often enough in this country is read. We need to get back into reading. Stop watching TV. The 50s fucked us up. Color TV
Turn
has
this
ruined everything.
episode off right now and pick up a book.
No, you read along. If you're on Spotify, the words come up on the screen, so you can read that, and I'll count that as a book. But a slew of wonderful books all released this year. Did you happen to look into any of the books?
I've noticed one in passing.
Get ready. This is a long list. From J.R.R. Tolkien, you have The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, as well as The Two Towers, both released this year.
Fucking hell, so cute. So cute.
Also, William Golding released his own book with a Lord of the Flies.
That's the one I wrote down.
That's a great book. I loved that one when I was a kid. Ian Fleming came out with Live and Let Die, one of the James Bond books, a good movie. Richard Matheson's I Am Legend was released.
I've
Also,
heard
do you want
that's
to
a
be a movie?
really good book.
I really want to read it.
The movie does not portray the book at all. It's like completely different.
Yeah, it seems really interesting. And it's also like a horror book, which is cool. Again, people liked horror stuff back then. So I definitely want to read that. Oh,
It's based on vampires, speaking of like Vampira and like that kind
yeah.
of. Mm-hmm.
And also kind of in the same sort of macabre, spooky vein. Charles Adams's Homebodies came out, which was an anthology of Addams Family and other cartoons of his.
Okay, cool.
And it contains the first appearance of Thing, the little hand character. And I actually found that on Internet Archive and was able to download it. So I read the whole thing and I, looked through it all.
That's cool. Was it
I
long?
love it. It's like 95 pages.
Okay.
I loved it so much. I'm not that familiar with the comic strips, honestly. I knew the cartoon, I knew the old 90s TV show, I knew the old TV show, but I never was that well versed in the comic strip, and it's really
I had no
funny.
idea. I had no idea it was a comic strip.
It's so the humor is really good. I really enjoy it. Like one of my favorite ones was a girl was of a woman sitting in like a recliner on the phone. And she's like, "Oh, nothing much, Agnes. What's up with you?" And she has a gun in her hand that's smoking, and there's like a pair of legs at the side of the frame. So obviously she just like shot her husband and then called her friend to chat. And I just thought his sense of humor was really funny. And I, again, didn't realize people liked that kind of stuff back then. A few other ones really quick. C.S. Lewis's A Horse and His Boy. It's one of the Chronicles of Narnia books. Dr. Seuss's A Horton Hears a Who, which is a fantastic little book. Became a pretty decent movie, actually. I like that one. And Aldous Huxley's The Doors of Perception was released, which would go on to influence a young Jim Morrison. That's why he named his band The Doors.
The Doors, yeah. I never read that book.
No, it's kind of one of those ones that I would like to, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to move on now from using our eyes to using our ears. And from books to, first thing here is the radio. I just wanted to take a quick detour before we talk about the music that's on the radio to tell you about something that I listened to, which was the Bob Hope Show Christmas special, live from Long Beach Veterans Hospital. And it was just basically, Bob Hope. I'm very familiar with his name and that he did a bunch of work with the USO and that he's got the Road to Wherever movies, and he's a very famous man. I've never seen a single lick of his stuff,
Yeah.
So I listened to this. It's it was a recording from the Veterans Hospital that he did for Christmas, and it was a show that he comes out, he does some sort of light stand up work and stuff like that, and then he was telling there's like a skit about him going to the mall looking for a gift for his wife, and then there's like a guy who keeps hassling him, who's trying to steal stuff from the stores, and then he ends up getting blamed for it. It was nice though. I liked it. It was cool. And then at the end, there's a bunch of songs and stuff like that. So it's what you're imagining from an old timey radio Christmas special. But it was just really neat to be able to listen to it and sit there with it's so crackly noise sounding and stuff like that. And
That's cool.
yeah, it really brought me back to the 50s, the good old days. Okay, so the time has come to jump into the music portion of the evening. Now, typically this is kind of our most, organized thing that we get a hold of. The Billboard charts are pretty easy to follow compared to a lot of the time the box office and other things and what happened in this year, what happened in the other, whatever, all that kind of different stuff. But when you go back this far, it becomes very difficult to keep track of. This is pre-Hot 100s for Billboard. They would not come out with the Hot 100 until 1955. So we don't have record of actually what were the top songs. There are a couple different charts that were issued out back then. The first thing was the Billboard Music Popularity Chart, which had different listings that covered. One was for retail sales. One was actually for sheet music. There was one for jukeboxes, and then one for radio play. So it's split up all over the place. Typically, Billboard only refers to the retail sales chart when talking about pre-1955. So that's what they consider to be the definitive chart. Looking it up, people say radio stations weren't really playing a lot of rock and roll music. They were trying to keep that from people. So kids would listen to their music on jukeboxes. So really, this is a very muddy time frame. Now, in order to help myself out with all of this, I was able to track down a piece of literature that was where I'm basing the rest of my information that I'm going to be talking about from. Joel Whitburn was a music historian who was responsible for setting up the Record Research Inc., which was a series of books on record chart placings. I found the 1973 edition of the top pop singles from 1940 to 1955. And I used that book, which is extremely fucking dense and a huge chore to do, to figure out when songs were released, how long they spent on the chart, and ultimately all of their details. Because all of this shit is basically lost to time. So I'm trusting Joel Whitburn on this. Okie dokie. Now we're going to be basing it on the top 30 retail sales chart. So these are the top 5 from that chart. We'll talk more about some other shit after the fact. But these are the top 5 songs that were sold. Which, gives you a pretty decent idea, but it's not going to paint a perfect picture. Alrighty, number 5. Let's get into it.
Number 5 is Make Love to Me by Joe Stafford, recorded on December 8th, 1953, and it was released in 1953. Not an exact date, but has to be between December 9th and December 31st, I would guess. It was written by Bill Norvis and Alan Copland. The melody was derived from a 1923 song, Tin Roof, that was composed by the New Orleans Rhythm Kings.
Now, this one, according to Joel Whitburn, this song was released on January 30th of 1954. On Discogs, which is usually pretty accurate, but I'm kind of trusting Joel Whitburn more than anybody else on this one. Discogs shows a date of December 21st of 1953. So between December 21st and the end of January, probably. It did spend 3 weeks at the top of the charts. It hit number 1 on March 13th, so it had been out for a couple months before it hit the top. It was, according to this Joel... Actually, no. Another place that I found some information was that Billboard magazine that I mentioned earlier, the November 1954 edition of Billboard, had in there what had been most played by radio DJs from January 1st through October 9th. There was a list of the songs that were most played on the radio. So we're basing this off of retail sales, but I do have some information about what was played on the radio. This was the 3rd most played by DJs within that time frame. So in that, if we were doing a normal Hot 100, this would be number 3, technically.
But then that doesn't count the rest of November and December.
That's true, and it also doesn't count all the other things that factor into Billboard sales. So Again, this all would change 1 year after this. So if we go any more forward, I'm going to have to do all this research again. But anything after this, it'll be a lot easier again. It reached number 2 on Cashbox. Now, this song is Joe Stafford with Paul Weston conducting the orchestra. A lot of these songs, they also feature the orchestra conductor being credited. But Paul Weston, this is interesting. Paul Weston and Joe Stafford were married. She hosted the TV show. It was called The Joe Stafford Show. And it was a 15-minute variety program that was on CBS during the 54 to 55 season. So she was very popular at this time. She was popular enough to have her own show. So she and her husband came out with this song. They also had a show where he was the conductor and arranger on it. And they also released an album this year that was called My Heart's in the Highlands, which was a collection of Scottish love songs. Yeah, so Joe Stafford and Paul Weston, I thought that was neat that they were a husband and wife team that really
That's cool.
did a lot of stuff. Additionally, I got to say, this is my favorite song from the top 5 this year.
I did like this song. I don't know if it was.
I thought it had a
My-
cool, the rest of the top 5 is very, it's got a different feel to it. And this one felt more like, music that I would listen to, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I enjoyed so much of this playlist. It's hard for me to buckle it down, but I mean, not even just, and I'm not even talking about just the top 5. I'm talking about the entirety of the playlist.
Yeah, I liked some stuff better from other parts of the playlist, but off the top 5, this one's my favorite. Okay, let's talk about number 4. This one is called Shaboom. Now, the version that charted at number 4 on the retail sales chart was by The Crew Cuts with David Carroll leading the orchestra. And the release date I was able to ascertain is June 30th of 1954. Sources put it somewhere between June and August. It stayed at the top of the charts for 7 weeks. It was originally written and recorded by The Chords, which was an infinitely better version, in my opinion.
That's the version I recognized.
Oh yeah.
Once I heard that version, I was like, this is the one I recognize. I recognize the song, but that was the version I recognized of the. This is probably my favorite one on the top, to be honest.
I like the Chords version. I don't like the Crew Cuts version.
Well, I think just the song in general is my favorite.
I thought the Crew Cuts version was very boring. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And then when I heard the other one, I was like, God damn, you guys just totally stripped out all the character and fun of the song. But that's the one that did better nationally, and that is definitely due to the fact that the Chords were a black group and the Crew Cuts were a white group. That's why the Crew Cuts did better.
Yeah.
The Chords version reached number 2 on the R&B charts and then number 9 on the pop charts. Some of the interesting story behind the song on their end was that they had auditioned the song for a famed record producer named Bobby Robinson while he was sick in bed. That was a weird place to be auditioning your song. But he rejected them for not being commercial enough. And when they went in to record a song, they were recording a cover song of somebody else, and their label reluctantly allowed them to record this as their B-side. And then, obviously, the B-side ended up overtaking the A-side, which was a cover of a Patti Page song called Cross Over the Rainbow Bridge. And then the more traditional pop version, less doo-woppy, would come out by the Canadian group called the Crew Cuts. And actually, to their credit, this was the first cover song they ever did. So they were an original.
Okay.
They were a band that did originals, and then this was their first time doing a cover, and it ended up working for them. So they switched over to being a cover group after that.
That's kind of lame. Seems like people would have been more interested in listening to their music that they were actually writing now that they've known them.
Yeah, but I mean, this is a time when, it was a little. I don't know. It was sort of different in terms of like people just liked songs, and it wasn't necessarily about who was doing them so much. And so, like, you see a ton of people would come out with the same song. Like, it was just music, so we all get a chance to do it or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Every time I saw, it was like version recorded by, and then it would give you, like, the actual record number of, like, when and where they recorded it. Because there was, like, also multiple recordings that the same artists were putting out that were being charted differently. But in reality, it's the same song, people listening to the same thing, but they weren't charting it that way.
Cashbox, at the time, they aggregated all versions of the song into one and just were like, this is how well this song performed, not any individual artist's recording of it or version of it or anything like that. So the Cashbox saying, this one hit number 2, it's counting everybody,
Okay. All right, moving on to number 3. It's Hey There by Rosemary Clooney. Somebody we'll go on to see later in this here episode.
Yes, she had a good year.
But Hey There is a show tune from a musical, Pajama Gang, written by Richard Alder and Jerry Ross. It was #1 for 6 straight weeks.
Rosemary Clooney, if you don't know, she was the wife of Jose Ferrer, who is in a bunch of movies, was a famed actor at the time. The Caine Mutiny is one of his better-known movies, came out this year. And her son is Miguel Ferrer, who is a famous actor in his own right. He's my favorite thing he did is Hot Shots Part 2. He plays the cowardly commando guy who's like scared to kill people. He's also in like one of the Law and Order shows. I don't remember which one, but he's like a Law and Order guy. And then also her nephew is one George Clooney. So a very famous family. The musical, The Pajama Gang, is based on the 1953 novel 7.5 Cents. And in that musical, The Pajama Game, the dances were staged by Bob Fosse in his choreography debut. So that's pretty cool. Pretty legendary guy getting his start. And in the actual show that this is from, the character Sid is singing it to a recording device, which I didn't know was something that people just had on hand back then. And he was telling himself he was foolish to continue with his advances to the character Babe. He plays the tape back, and after responding to his own comments, he sings a duet with himself, which I think is a really cool thing to do in a musical.
That is pretty cool.
Especially back then. That's like super inventive, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why in the song she has a point where she's like talking to herself. Because it's based on that part of the music.
Gotcha. Okay.
It was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 1999. At the same time, as we've talked about different versions, Sammy Davis Jr. had a version of this that peaked at number 16, and Johnny Ray peaked at number 27, all in the same year. This was #1 on Cashbox, but again, it would have included Sammy Davis and Johnny Ray's versions in with Rosemary Clooney, so obviously this was going to hit #1. All right, now #2. This is the one that I didn't get hardly anything on. #2 is Wanted by Perry Como with Hugo Winterhalter leading the orchestra. Came out on February 24th of 1954. It spent 8 weeks at the top of the charts. It did get #1 on Cashbox at a certain point in the year. This song was the most played song by DJs from January 1st to October 9th. This was the 8th of 11 hits for Perry Como between 1945 and 1958. So like Rosemary, he was killing it. He had 36 other top 10s in that same span of time.
Damn.
And, listening to it, I think it's kind of obvious and stuff like that to a listener, but it's nice to hear him say it himself. Perry Como actually credited Bing Crosby for influencing his style and way of singing.
Oh, that's cool.
And his voice and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was like, okay, yeah, that's evident, but it's nice to know that that's actually not just me thinking that, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
That's all I have as far as the information on this song. There's not really anything I got in terms of anything else.
I got who wrote it. Did you say that? Written by Jack Fulton and Lois Steele.
This one was, it's funny because the first couple times I heard it, I just was thinking of it as him being like, I want this person in my life. It took me like a couple of tries or listens through to be like, oh, he's saying that like this is a wanted poster, basically. Like someone's done him wrong and he's trying to catch this girl. But if she says she's sorry, he'll forgive her. So I thought it was a nice story song.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that's a lot of what's happening in these days with story songs.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I liked this song. It wasn't my favorite, but I don't know. I think this kind of music just has like a little special place in my heart. So I'm like, this is fun.
Yeah. In regards to this song's especially, but I think a lot of the songs from this year, I was kind of expecting there to be more rock and roll stuff. Or even like early rock and roll or like country or something like that. But it all has this very like orchestral feeling to it. Obviously, all the top 5 songs include who conducted the song in them. Mm-hmm. And the thing that shocked me about that was like I kind of assumed that was like 40s music, or something. Like it feels like a precursor to pop music, but this was pop music at the time. And the thing that really struck me was that Disney movies back then just had pop music soundtracks. To me, they were sort of timeless and like orchestras, and so they were supposed to evoke a sense of, the time period the movies are from or something. But no, they just had pop music in them. The same way they do now,
Yeah, it's true.
So it's like it's not weird for a Disney movie to have like a hip hop song in it now, because when they first started out, they were just recreating what was popular on the radio, and that's I just didn't realize that. I guess I just assumed at the time everything was, rock around the clock kind of shit, but it just hadn't come out yet, really.
Well, and then they do that later too. They get like Phil Collins or whatever
Yeah.
to do Disney movies, whoever's popular at the time.
I guess really it's the second wave of Disney movies, like the 60s and the 70s movies that did still use these old timey soundtracks.
Yeah.
That they were harkening back to the 50s, but it seems like they're harkening back to medieval times or something like that, because it's it's in Robin Hood or something like that. It's like got this old time soundtrack, but really it's just a soundtrack that's like dated at that point.
Yeah.
Mhm. Although Robin Hood is the one example I use where they actually did have a pop singer singing the songs in it.
Oh, really?
Or
Who's
not
that?
a pop singer, but they had shit. I'm totally blanking on it now. But King of the Road,
Oh.
Roger Miller. Yeah, he's the guy who did King of the Road. So he was a, not a pop star, but he was a famous person from the time. So I said picked the wrong example, but like Alice in Wonderland or something like that,
Yeah, those were originals, but they still had like orchestra in them.
Yeah, that's what this.
When did Sword of the Stone come out? It's like
That's one that I think
70s
is like the 60s or the 70s, and that's kind of what I was thinking of, was more that than Robin Hood. But yeah, Perry Como's music really feels like that to me. Just feels like it could be walking through Disneyland and hearing that song,
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okie dokie. Last
Numero uno. Little Things Mean a Lot by Katie Kitty Callan. Released on March 8th, 1954. Written by Edith Litterman and music by Carl Stutz. Stayed on the U.S. Billboard #1 spot for 9 consecutive weeks and #1 on Cashbox.
It had a total of 26 weeks on the charts that year and was the second most played by DJs for that period from January 1st to October 9th. Lyrics by Edith Lindemann and music by Carl Stutz. Now, Edith was a film and theater critic of the Richmond Times-Dispatch, and Stutz was a local DJ. When she was driving through Kentucky with her husband listening to the radio, she told him, "I can write better shit than this." And he said, You could. You should. Do it. I believe in you. Go ahead. And so she wrote a song. She took it down to the local radio station, gave it to the DJ, who I don't know why he took it upon himself to compose the music for it, but he did. The first song didn't do fantastically, but they ended up becoming a songwriting team, and this was their biggest hit.
I mean, the biggest hit. It's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just this random kind of, they just decided to write songs together. Also, another song they wrote together was Redheaded Stranger, which became a hit for Willie Nelson. And he even based an entire album around that, a concept album, that was a huge hit for him, kind of gave him notoriety across the country. And then later, also, he starred in a movie that was based on the album. So they, influenced Willie Nelson's career directly and made him a movie star and a country music star, really. They also wrote a song called Blackberry Winter, which was it was referred to as a backdoor million seller because it was the B-side to The Yellow Rose of Texas.
I don't think I've ever heard that song.
Really? That's like I'm sure you've heard it. It's an old timey one. It's like, it's a yellow rose of Texas that I am going to see. There are no others like her. But that's like, it was a hugely popular song. I recognize it from cartoons, I feel like. I think I remember it from The Wild Thornberrys, I think. Nigel Thornberry sings it at one point. Possibly. That's just a weird recollection. And so I mean, they were this songwriting team of two people who didn't really come from songwriting.
I've heard this song before. Sorry.
No, that's fine. Let me see then. Okay, here we go. Hold on. I'm actually going to share the screen on this one. Okay, everybody, if you don't know the song, The Yellow Rose of Texas, we got a little quick, probably the definitive version of it here.
We sing, "There's a yellow rose in Texas that I am going to see. No other cowboy
I thought
knows
mountain climbing would be cool.
That's it. That's Nigel Thornberry from the Wild Thornberries, played by Tim Curry. So yeah, they didn't write that song, but they wrote the song that ended up being the B-side to that. So they were extremely prolific songwriters in their day, and just happened to be two people who decided to start writing songs sort of randomly. I thought that was a neat story.
That's super cool.
That's it for the top 5. That's all I got. A lot more information than I thought I was going to get. When I first started, and each Wikipedia page was like no information. I had to get creative, and I found ways, but it was difficult.
Yeah, no, I found more information than I thought, and it wasn't as cut and dry as I thought, because in the first place you go is Wikipedia, and I know that that's not the most credible source, so like I'll get down a couple of facts, and then I'll go through and I'll fact check it with other sources to see if it actually happened.
Yeah.
And this was, yeah, I'm glad you found that guy's thing, because
Yeah, that and the Billboard magazine from 1954.
yeah,
really
I think those
saved
are
this.
two. After all the research that I did, I think that those were two good, credible sources. I would say the only other one is Cashbox, but I think that he takes that into account. No.
On the top pop charts, I'm not sure
Yeah.
actually. I think it might be Billboard related, but
Okay.
But at any rate, I mean, the Cashbox charts really weren't that reliable because it's kind of aggregating all these different versions into one thing. It doesn't really give you a picture of whose was popular or not.
That's true.
Because if 30 people all came out with the same song and none of those were that popular, but they all now are, kind
Yeah.
of, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Here's another big piece of music news. Probably the most important music news to come out this year is on June 19th, Elvis released his debut single. It's called That's All Right. He had recorded a track for his mom's birthday at like this local record company that allowed people to come in and pay a couple bucks and record themselves. So he recorded himself singing for his mom, and the studio owner wasn't there to hear him when he did it. It was like just whoever was left in charge of the studio at the time. So they just saved the recordings and set them aside, and and that was that. And almost a year later, the owner actually heard the tapes of Elvis, so he called him in and wanted to work with him.
Yeah, that's cool.
He introduced him to Scotty Moore and Bill Black, who were two musicians, and they were to cut a record together, kind of older songs. It's this story that's kind of popular. It's been parodied and stuff like that. They're doing songs that aren't what Elvis is wanting to do. And in between a break of recording some of these songs, started playing an up-tempo version of this song that already existed, That's All Right. And the other two dudes jumped in with him and started playing along, and they were all just like, whoa, shit, what are we doing, And the dude who owned the studio was like, okay, we're recording that. Like, let's do that again. And they ended up, trying to get this sold or put onto radio stations, but they wouldn't play it because stations that played white music thought he might be black or it sounded black. They weren't going to play it because of that. And then all the stations that played black music were not playing music by a white guy. So he didn't get any music play for a while. It ended up being this DJ named Dewey Phillips who took a chance and loved the record and wanted to play it. And he did an interview with Elvis on air, kind of unbeknownst to Elvis, where he was just asking him some sort of personal questions. And one of the questions he asked him was what high school he went to. And that told the audience that he was white because high schools were still segregated. Because he was out of high school, obviously. But when he was in high school, he would have gone to a segregated high school. So that told the audience he was white, and then other stations started playing him.
Dang.
Yeah, and it's and the B-side to this is Kentucky Blues Shuffle, I think is what it's called. I forgot to write it down. And that one's kind of credited as being one of the first rockabilly songs that really... There was some beforehand, but it focused too much on the country, and he was sort of the first person to really, up the tempo and make it more of a rock thing. The first real rock song that made, national attention and everything was Bill Haley and his Comets with We're Gonna Rock Around the Clock. They did chart higher with the song Shake, Rattle, and Roll, but Rock Around the Clock was the first one that they did that was really popular, and this was really the mainstream America's first time hearing rock and roll as it would come to be known. Again, before this, it's got its roots in blues, it's got its roots in country, there's some jazz, all that kind of stuff mixes together, and there's some earlier ones than this that are rock and roll. I mean, I found a very early record that did sound pretty rock, and I was I can't remember who it was or when it was from. It was a woman, think it was from the 30s or 40s. But this is the first time that as it would come to be known throughout the 50s and the way it would sound for years to come, Bill Haley and his Comets were the first real example of that on the radio.
Yeah, this is to be a huge revolution for music.
Well, outside of all of these big things that went along, what else do you like on the actual list?
There was one that really stood out to me. I mean, there's a lot on here that most people will recognize, you know, so, but like outside of that, there's one that I really liked. It's called Hernando's Hideaway.
I liked that one too.
That one was one that reminded me of like a good Halloween song.
That was a cool one.
It's like a little like ominous, but it has like the like Spanish style feel to it. It was cool.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah, that one was really cool. I did enjoy that one. There was Mr. Sandman is a song that I think everybody would recognize. Mr. Sandman, bring
Yeah.
me a dream.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, I was surprised that it wasn't like really high up in the list because it was not like it's rock and roll or whatever, but that one was like, I think it was on the top 30 list, but towards the bottom. So it didn't actually like do amazingly. It did well, but it wasn't like one of the top songs of its day, but it's definitely the one I think is one of the more
It's
recognizable
carried.
ones. Yeah.
It's carried for sure.
You also got I've Got a Woman by Ray Charles. That didn't end up charting, which is wild. That song's amazing.
Yeah.
And then Earth Angel by the Penguins. That's another good one.
That one, if I can just only think of Back to the Future.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that until you remember you and I watched that the first time
Oh yeah,
together. So I
that's
don't
like
have those references.
that's all I hear, and it's just that version of it.
That's probably why it's a popular song for people nowadays. I grew up loving that song, and people knew it, and that always kind of surprised me that people knew this sort of. To me, it was a really random song that I knew, and I guess it was just really one of the more popular movies ever that I just had never seen.
A few of these on here ring true to my heart because my grandparents loved this kind of music. Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. That's Amore by Dean Martin.
Yeah,
That's
that was
all-
also
that's
when I was
always-
surprised it wasn't higher up.
Yeah, a lot of that played in my house.
I thought it was funny the amount of mambo-based songs that came out. There was Papa Loves Mambo. That's a pretty famous song. There's also Mambo Italiano, also famous. Those were by
Yeah.
Perry Como and Rosemary Clooney, respectively. And then Mambo Baby is not as popular, but it's a song by Ruth Brown. So there were at least 3 songs that came out and did well this year that were about Mambo. So I kind of looked into that and the history of Mambo. It's not really worth mentioning here, but it's, there were a bunch of advancements and changes in the dance and stuff like that. It came over, got popular here, and in the early 50s it was kind of experiencing a bit of a cultural boom.
Yeah.
And speaking of boom, the last one I will point out here is it's number 50 on the list on here is Shaboom by Stan Freberg, which was a parody version of the song Shaboom. Did you listen to that one?
I must have because I listened to the whole thing, but
He's like, all right, you guys, come on, we gotta come out here, we gotta mumble. I want you all to mumble, all right? His voice really reminded me of Dave Herman. He's the guy from Office Space who plays Michael Bolton, but he's like a voice actor who does a bunch of stuff. And like his voice just reminded me a lot of the voice Dave Herman does a lot. He's like, all right, you guys, everyone would play in this song, and I want you all to mumble, all right? So let's go. And it's like, shaboom, and like they're like making fun of the song because the guy, I guess. When I listened to it first, but after hearing the Crew Cuts version, and I thought that was weird. They don't really mumble that much. And then I listened to the Chords version, and then I kind of thought, okay, mumbling. This guy's got a problem with the rock and roll sound. Obviously, I don't know
Yeah.
how much of this is that they're mumbling, and how much he doesn't like the fact that they sound very black on that record, and he's kind of like giving them shit for that because they don't mumble that bad on the Chords version. It's not like it's hard to understand. But the whole time he's like, I could understand that last word, you guys. Come on, you got to take this seriously. I don't want to be able to hear anything you're saying. And then he also starts making fun of Marlon Brando halfway through, and like, because Marlon Brando is a very famous mumbler, so he kind of takes him to task as well.
that's
And
funny.
like halfway through the song, he starts screaming, "Stella, Stella!" I was just blown away that there were parody versions of songs back then.
They're like, fuck this. Fuck these guys. It's
Yeah.
more of like a spiteful thing, though, not like a
Yeah.
fun and wholehearted thing.
I mean, it's there's some. I guess I was gonna say Weird Al. Weird Al doesn't really do that. He doesn't like attack the people that do the song.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, he just makes a funny version of it.
Yeah. I think that's why most people are okay with it. It's not like he's talking shit, you know. A lot of cool like blues people are still on here.
Yeah.
Fats Dano. Who else did I see that was on here? I just saw.
There was some cool
Is it
stuff towards the
Howlin' Wolf?
bottom.
Muddy Waters. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, no, there's Muddy Waters and there was Howlin' Wolf.
I'm sure he was coming out with music this year.
I thought I put something by him on there.
T-Bone Walker.
Yeah, that one was it was kind of a collection of some of his older songs. So that song called Stormy Monday is probably his biggest song, but it had been out in I think the 40s, but this was just a new recording of it. But it's kind of like where most people would have heard the song now. I don't think that the original recordings are that well known or have existed that well.
My favorite song that I had never heard on here that I think that came out of this, I don't know, besides that other one, Hydromatic Woman.
That was a good one.
by
I thought you
Joe
would like
Hill.
that one.
I like that one a lot.
Yeah, there were a couple that I was like, ooh, I think Mark will like this. Yeah, that was a cool one. Big Walter Horton and Joe Hill Lewis. That one, I think that one might have been like a Howlin' Wolf song originally or something like that.
A lot of the time, music in this time is covers.
No, this was Joe Hill Lewis's original song. Yeah, the blues stuff from this era is really cool. Okay, enough about blues. I want to talk about whites. Let's move over.
Come to the right era for it.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, enough of this. This mumbling bullshit. Let's get on to the movies. And who's a man with some great diction when he sings, huh? Bing Crosby, let me tell you. We are going to talk about the number one movie in the country for 1954, which was White Christmas. Woo! Merry Christmas, everybody! That was great. That was really, like I said, when we thought about doing a Christmas episode, and we were like, how are we going to do that? And I just, for some reason, said, you know what? White Christmas came out at a time when Christmas was very popular in this country, and I bet you that was the number one movie in the country. And it just happened to be so. So we got lucky there. The film was released on November 5th of 1954, directed by Michael Curtis, written by Melvin Frank and the Normans, Krasna and Panama. I just thought it was funny that two guys were named Norman. This movie had a $2 million budget, and it made between $12 million and $30 million in 1954. That was another one of those figures that was sort of hard to pin down. It's listed as being a bunch of different numbers, somewhere between 12 and 30. Stars Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye, Rosemary Clooney, and Vera Ellen. And I'll read you the synopsis here right quick. This I got from ParamountMovies.com. Like I said, I'm going straight to the source for all this shit. I'm tired of all these Amazon and Apple, all that other thing. We're going to figure out what Paramount says about their own damn movie. And I will point out, I copied and pasted this directly. White Christmas spins the romantic and humorous tale of Bob Wallace and Phil Davis, two Army buddies who become a top-notch musical comedy team after the war and are now the toast of Broadway. While on the road in Florida, the stars become involved with twee aspiring singers. Copied it directly. I'm assuming that meant two. The sister act of Betty and Judy. Despite some romantic complications between the couples, everything ends on a happy note when Christmas Eve brings rave reviews for the show and much-needed snowfall. There you go. That's not just a synopsis, but the whole damn plot.
Yeah. Have you ever seen this movie before?
This is one that I did not grow up with. I had never seen it until I started dating my now wife. She introduced me to this movie, and it's become, every single year we watch this. We know it so well that, I really didn't need to pay attention to the movie because I've seen it so many times now. I know all the words to the songs. And it was something I realized while I was watching it that I was like, I feel like now this is something I've know so well and have known my whole life, but I've really only been watching it the last, 10 years or so.
I've
What
never
about you?
seen
Had
it
you seen it?
before.
No.
I've
What did
never
you think
seen
coming to
before.
it fresh?
I liked it a lot. It would had me captivated the whole time. One thing I noticed throughout the whole thing is because immediately when the movie starts, it says this is the first movie made with VistaVision. And what they did is when they filmed movies, it was in a 33 millimeter strip, but they filmed it vertically when they filmed movies. The difference between this one is they just turned the 33 millimeter strip horizontally, which made it actually clearer and gave you a wider shot so you could capture more of it.
It also used a newly invented sound system called Perspecta, which was a directional sound system in certain theaters that were equipped to show it like that. It was essentially 3 channels of sound, a left, right, and a center. But rather than being stereophonic, where it's actually different tracks that are mixed to be played in different spots, it was a mono track that they would just pan. And then they could also raise the gain on the individual speakers. So they created a sense of surround sound. It wasn't actually surround sound, but it was able to be panned around. And it was cool because they could use the existing technology that was in the theaters. They didn't have to come out with a new surround sound system in the theaters. They could use what was already there and just pan around the sound. So it was something that didn't necessarily stay because they did end up doing, stereophonic sound, obviously. But this was kind of something that they were like trying to push the envelope while staying within the confines of what they had, which is the opposite of what was going on with VistaVision. VistaVision required whole new projectors to be shown to show them. The last movie shot with VistaVision back then was in 1961, and it was called One-Eyed Jacks. They didn't do another movie in the 20th century using VistaVision until the 21st century, I guess. Until now, in 2024, the movie The Brutalist was shot in VistaVision. So it's making a comeback now. That was the first time it had been used since 1961. And coming out this year in 2026, we've got a couple different movies, like 4 or 5 different ones. 2 that I felt were noteworthy were a version of Wuthering Heights, which I love that book, and then The Chronicles of Narnia, The Magician's Nephew, directed by Greta Gerwig, is coming in 2026. Which,
cool.
That was what I was thinking of earlier when I mentioned Narnia. That's the last book in the series, but it's technically a prequel, so this is her kind of starting her version of a Narnia-verse, I guess.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's funny because we just talked about Narnia recently, and we were like, were there more movies? Yes, there did turn out to be 3 of those that came out in the 2000s, which is
I
crazy.
didn't watch the other 2, I don't think, at all.
I saw the first one. I loved those books, so I did go see Prince Caspian, and then I thought there was a Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and there was, but yeah, so
these ones are going to be cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, it should be neat. So that's with terms of its technological stuff. There was a lot going on with this movie. And then also behind the scenes stuff with this, there's some interesting stuff because it originally was written for Bing Crosby with Fred Astaire. And he was, a very famous dancer of his time. They had worked together on 2 prior Irving Berlin pictures. This movie features the music of Irving Berlin. They had done Holiday Inn together, and then they also did Blue Skies. So this was supposed to be them pairing up again, working with Irving Berlin, who was, the greatest songwriter of his era. And Astaire was given the script to the movie prior to shooting, and he read it and declined to be in it and asked to be let out of his Paramount contract because the script was so fucking bad, apparently. Like, damn, how bad was this movie initially? So he was replaced by Donald O'Connor, who was a famous in his time as well. He was in Singing in the Rain. He sings the Make 'Em Laugh number. But he had to drop out right before shooting due to illness. So at the last minute, they cast Danny Kaye, who was very famous at the time.
Yeah.
So he requested a $200,000 salary and 10% of the gross.
Damn.
Yeah, and he got it. And essentially the way the movie split up was 30% went to Bing, 10% went to Danny, 30% went to Irving, and then 30% went to Paramount. So Paramount funded the whole $2 million and didn't even get a third of the money back. I mean, they got money back, but I mean, they didn't get a third of the profits,
Yeah.
Now, when they added Danny Kaye to the movie, the original script that had been written by Norman Krasna had to be rewritten to add jokes because Danny Kaye was a comedy guy, whereas Fred Astaire was just a dancer. So they brought in Norman Panama and Melvin Frank, who were comedy writers, to do some punch-ups. And when they got a look at the script, they said, we need to rewrite this whole fucking thing. And the director was like, yeah, I think you're right. So they spent 8 weeks at $5,000 a week rewriting the script. Melvin Frank was quoted as saying, writing that movie was the worst experience of my life. Norman Krasna was a talented man, but it was the lousiest story I had ever heard. It needed a brand new story, one that made sense. So, yeah, I guess the original version of this movie really, it sucked so bad that they had to spend 2 months rewriting it. They lost Fred Astaire as a contracted player. Like,
Damn.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what could it have possibly been like for it to be that bad.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know. I bet you there's I don't know, not anymore probably. I'm sure there's an original script out there somewhere, but I don't know. Maybe not.
Now, a little bit of this movie that's probably unknown to most people, because this movie's not, not everybody's watching 50s holiday movies anymore. But White Christmas is actually, it's pseudo remake, sort of Holiday Inn. Holiday Inn had come out like 10 years prior. And it's a very similar story where there's an inn in the mountains and they're going to do a big holiday show. But rather than it just being Christmas, the song White Christmas is in Holiday Inn. That's where it originated. And rather than it just being a Christmas thing, they do a big musical number for every holiday. There's a big Thanksgiving number. There's a big Valentine's Day thing. They're just each of the different holidays are represented in this. So that kind of makes me think, like, man, how did you fuck up a script that seems to be based on an old movie that bad? Like, how did it not make sense when it was already there? I guess they had to add in sort of that the general was the one who purchased it, and then all the, Wallace and Davis stuff kind of had to be added in too. But it still was like there was a lot of backbone to this movie prior to you guys starting to write it.
Yeah, it's weird that they fucked it up that bad.
The thing that struck me about this, watching it this time, even though I've seen it a bunch of times now, is like how much they are, again, when I talk about the gay 90s thing earlier in the program, there really are like a couple times in this movie they're like, remember the good old days? Like there's the part with the choreography number where he's like, dancers don't dance anymore, they're doing choreography, like, which is funny that it's the same way we feel now. We're like, the new way of doing art is so bad. Remember the old way? Like, you know? And they're like, the choreography's stupid. I miss, tap dancing. And there's the big part where they talk about the minstrel days of old, and they miss the minstrel shows. And it's a good number, but in my head, I'm like, minstrel shows. The thing I really know about them is the blackface, That's like what is one of those things where you go, well, it's a good thing we got rid of minstrel shows, right? And there were other elements to it, sure.
I mean, I've never even heard of minstrel shows until he said it.
Oh yeah, no, it's something that was.
That's
like
like
it's the
all
precursor.
That's like all it is. It's literally like I mean, I don't. Is that really all they are? Is just
no? That's like what we
blackface
remember
shows?
from them was that was the main. They were kind of the variety show of their time. They were people
Okay.
would go from town to town, putting on music and comedy shows and just different things like that, like minstrels in the days of old. And so they just, travel around. But a big part of it was the fact that blackface was central to it. There was just, for some reason,
'Cause literally
black people
every
had great
article-
music.
Literally every article that's in here is like only about how it's about blackface.
Yeah, it was just a way, I guess, to do black songs in a black way without hiring black people to do it. Because we see even in the 50s that, like, if a white artist sounded too black, they're not going to be played on the radio. Black artists aren't played on white radio. So, it's
Yeah.
like, how do we get you guys this music that the black people are making is phenomenal. It's way better than the shit we're making. How do we get it out to the people? Well, we'll just dress up like we're them.
Yeah,
So-
I guess. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's
no
really
idea.
all that notwithstanding. The movie itself, it's such a pleasant movie to watch. I really enjoy it. I love all the songs. I love Sisters is maybe my favorite one. I like when Bing and Danny come out and do it afterwards, dressed up as them.
That's
Hilarious.
fun. That is fun.
And Snow is another good one. I love singing that. Snow,
Mhm.
snow, snow, snow.
Yeah, a lot
I
of good
want
songs.
to wash my hair, my ass, my balls with snow.
I don't remember that part. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch it. I don't know.
You got any other
No.
things you want to say about this one?
I didn't know Bing Crosby sounded like that. I expected his voice to be deeper when he first started talking after he sings in the very first part when they're in war.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, guys. And I was like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, he sings like this, and then he talks like a normal man, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't expect it. And I don't think it, like, later on in the movie, it's as noticeable, but for some reason in that scene, right after he stops singing and starts speaking, it sounds really
Yeah, it's probably because
different.
he's projecting so much, And in the other
Yeah.
scenes where he's just talking, I mean, he's putting on a persona, Nobody just walks around talking like that for no reason, you know what I mean? So he's
yeah.
he's playing up his character. And yeah, I guess in the normal scenes when he's not having to shout over a crowd of people into a camera that's like way in the back and stuff, and it's not like they had lav mics back then,
Yeah, it's true.
So yeah, he had to kind of project, and once he did that, his actual tone came out a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. That threw me off. But no, it was cool. It was a good movie. I thought it was fun, and the jokes were good. And I think that the two, like Bing Crosby and
Danny Kaye.
Danny Kaye had good chemistry.
Yeah, they were great, especially for getting thrown together at the last second. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
They
I
were
think that
great
they
together.
They did really good. They both like their lines are really good. We were talking about dialogue earlier.
Yeah.
A lot of their dialogue's good. They like repeat stuff back to each other. That's like,
Mhm.
oh well, actually, like, you know what I mean. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love the. If you have 9 children, and just spend 5 minutes a day with each one of them, that's 45 minutes I'll get to myself. And then, like, later on in the movie, we're like, why are you trying to help us? And he's like, it's 45 minutes to myself. And they're both like, what the fuck is he talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a great movie. And Danny Kaye and Vera Ellen can dance the fucking house down.
Yeah, that they did really good. And I noticed I was like, she does all the dance numbers pretty much, but she does a really good job. 'Cause you
Yeah,
don't
she was
see
amazing.
Clooney do too many like that.
No, yeah, I mean, her thing was just the singing, I guess, you know, and then she had a
Mhm.
recording career outside of this. I did look up Vera Ellen because I was interested in her, and every time I watch this movie, I always think she's such a beautiful woman, but is so skinny in this. It's like she's way too skinny. You can tell it's not how she's supposed to look. It seems. So I looked into
Yeah.
her life a little bit, and she had a very very sad life, and had her mom when she was a kid and first started dancing put her on a really awful diet because she thought she was too fat, and like she was only allowed to like eat soda crackers and drink sour milk and drink like water with vinegar in it and stuff like that. And then when she got older, she would only drink a cup of coffee during the day. That was all she would have. And then at night, she would eat dinner. She would eat a steak and a vegetable. And that's all she would eat. And so during the dancing, like she didn't have any energy. And it was something that happened throughout her career. And at this point was kind of this movie and the movie before it were when she was at her lowest weight. They say she's probably about 95 pounds at certain scenes of this movie.
Wow. Yeah, you can see it in the costumes that she's wearing.
Yeah, and that was something the costume designers did to kind of not draw attention to how thin she was. Her legs are exposed because she does have, great legs because she really, unfortunately, was, MGM when she first started working for them in the late 40s, they told her legs were too fat. And so she started to saran wrap her legs when she would do her dances. And then she would keep her feet elevated at all times unless she was walking. So that way they wouldn't gain any muscle. And, all of that, like I said, the costume designers would accentuate her legs and try to dress her in like more flowy things. And then another thing I had noticed while I was watching it this time is that her neck is always covered. And I thought that's probably from some sort of, premature aging and stuff like that from having an eating disorder. And that was just something I thought. And then when I looked it up, people said some people have spread a rumor about this stuff and that her neck was covered the whole time because of this. But it was just a fashion choice. And I was like, I didn't get that from a rumor. I just was watching the movie and ascertained that because she's clearly dangerously thin here. And so then I had to do some more research and found out, yeah, she had a very, very sad life. And then she quit acting when she lost her child to SIDS. And then she would continue dancing in L.A. like into her 40s and 50s. And her classmates said she still would show up with saran wrap on her legs at all times. And she ended up dying of ovarian cancer.
Damn.
Just
That's
and
so-
people
that's so
said
sad.
she was really malnourished, and that didn't help her facing any sort of diseases or anything like that. It was just like, man, what a sad story. But she's so good in this movie, Oh, and one of the worst things is too, right after this movie, she stopped getting hired because she was too thin. So
That's sad, but MGM told her that she was not thin enough.
yeah.
It's fucked up. It's so sad.
Yeah, so that terrible, the Hollywood system and the way it chews up specifically actresses, has been going on since time immemorial,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But not to end it on a super bummer note, it was just last thing I had heard about that movie. Again,
But
it's
she
interesting that
does
we
a fabulous job, though. I have to say.
she is. She's great. She really is. I mean, that tap dancing part where she's like,
Yeah.
and it's like in my head, I was like, oh, is that like fake? But no, they wouldn't have faked that back then. There would be no reason to show someone tap dancing if it wasn't going like, look how good she is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Really good. Okay, so on a scale of 1,954 liverwurst sandwiches, how much are you going to give this one?
I'm gonna go 1,746 liverwurst sandwiches.
It's good. All right, I think I'm going to give this one. I'm going to go 1808.
Okay.
I love this movie. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies now. I think it's so great.
It's a really good movie. I think it will be on my Christmas rotation.
Okay, some
Did
other.
did you watch any other movies from this year before we go into the list?
Yes, I did. Did you see any?
I watched Sabrina.
I did too.
Oh, really? Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that movie. It was good. I've seen it before, but not in a really long time.
I had never seen that one. That's one I always wanted to see. I also wanted to watch the remake. There was one with Harrison Ford that was done in the 90s. Like the cover of that one I recognized for forever. And where it's like a white cover and like her black hat on there, like animated, and then him like kind of leaning up against the side of the wall on the VHS cover. I just remember seeing it, I think, in Blockbuster or something, probably when I was a kid. So I've always wanted to see Sabrina because it looked cool. So I finally got to see the original.
Yeah, like I said, I had seen it before. It's Wendy's like favorite movie, which is why my daughter is named Sabrina, actually.
Oh, okay. Then, one that I have seen before that I liked a lot, that was also kind of a comedy, is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Have you seen that one?
No.
It's it's a musical, and that one's really good too. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I enjoy musicals. I know not everybody does, but if you like them, I would recommend checking that one out. There were two really big Japanese movies that came out. Well, three, but two that I will talk about up top are Seven Samurai and Sancho the Bailiff are two that I've always wanted to watch, and I was gonna watch them this week, and they're especially Seven Samurai is one. It's like 3 hours and change, and it's in Japanese. It's black and white. It's something that I'm like, I need to be able to be in the right mood to sit down and watch this whole thing and pay attention to it, but I didn't have 3 hours to do that this week,
Yeah.
But and in terms of sort of the film noir sort of stuff going on, or just people liked murder still back then a lot. You have Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, which I've seen and love. That's a great movie. And
Yeah, I've
Witness
seen
to
that
Murder.
movie too. I'm surprised that wasn't. I guess it's just a movie that held on for a lot of years, but I'm surprised it wasn't number one.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the ones that you think of as being really big from this year. A couple other ones that were really big were On the Waterfront, La Strada, A Star is Born. This is the second version of A Star is Born. There's still one more before this, and one in the 70s, in addition to the Lady Gaga version. And The Caine Mutiny, I mentioned earlier. That was a really big one. I was supposed to watch that in film school. I never did it. There was the Dragnet movie. We talked about Dragnet being really popular on TV. There also was a movie. Dragnet was based on a radio show that had been on for years. That was, I think it was all like real life stories, sort of the way Medic was. That was based on real stories.
Oh, okay.
Then you have some people were a little nervous of the water back then, it seems. You had Robinson Crusoe came out, where the guy gets stranded on an island. I've seen that one before. And then 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I've never seen and always wanted to.
I've never seen it either.
I mean, I love adventure movies. I got to watch that. That was another one that it was really the research was so heavy this week that I didn't have time to sit around and watch movies. So the one that I did get to see this week, though, for the first time ever was, again, being afraid of the water and leading into more of the horror aspect of things, is Godzilla, the original.
I thought you were going to say Creature from the Black Lagoon.
I was going to
For
say that
sure.
in a second.
Okay, I thought when you were leading up to that, I was like, oh, he's going to... Oh, nope.
No, that's my next one. No, but Godzilla, have you ever seen the original?
I have not. I watched the trailer for it, though, today, just because I didn't have time to watch it. I was just like, oh, I want to watch a trailer at least.
Oh, I loved it. It was so good.
One of
Really,
the
really good.
crazy things that I thought was one of the descriptions of the Godzilla trailer when the announcer's like talking about it, and he's like, the king of monsters. He burns down 1.3 million people gets burned down in a city in a holocaust of fire. And I was like, geez, that's really close to the...
Yeah, we're just using that as a term? Fuck. That's pretty wild.
I was like, whoa, I got to write that down.
Yeah, the movie wouldn't come out in the U.S. for a few more years, but it was out in Japan. And I mean, it's really, really good. And it's about them, talking about how nuclear power is not good to have, man. It's going to fucking destroy the world. We can't keep
sense
pushing
that
forward in this
Japan-
way.
Makes sense that
Yeah.
Japan would be the ones that have that message.
No, and we talked about people still reeling from the war. Like, that's one thing when you're like, oh, we had it so hard here in America, and people are still sad about it. But, like, when Japan, watching Godzilla, and they're like, I'm not evacuating again. That was, like, the things people were saying. Like, I'm not doing this shit again. We just got over Nagasaki. Like, now I have to have everything destroyed again, you know? And it's just
Yep.
like, damn, dude, that's the reality of the way the war impacts people and shit that you don't see over here. It's like, yeah, we all had to ration and shit, you know? And we heard about the war. It was like, yeah, when your whole place gets blown up and stuff, you make a movie going, don't do this again, god damn it.
Yeah.
And instead of listening, the world goes, well, it's a pretty cool movie. Let's make more of those.
Yep.
You know? Most of the Godzilla movies follow the template that this movie set. So if you like those movies, watch this one. It's just, you know, it's great. I love old practical effects and all that kind of stuff. So really loved this one. The other one, though, people being afraid of the water again, but people being another cautionary tale is Creature from the Black Lagoon. This is one I've seen. This is one of my favorite horror movies. It's so good. I love it.
It's one of my favorite horror movies too, and I was gonna watch it again this week, and I didn't watch it, but I
ended up
put it-
watching it again, even
I
though
put it
I
on-
should have watched something else.
I put it on Tubi because I was like, I have to watch this, even if I watch it later.
It's so good. And that's another one where it's like, look, we don't need to be here messing with this untapped wilderness. Why are we doing this? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
mhm.
oh, and then you get there and you're like, hey, let's take this thing home with us, you know? Creature from the Black Lagoon, I thought was interesting that it does have a similar sort of feel to it as Godzilla does, even though Godzilla wouldn't have been known in the States at this time because it didn't come out for a few more years there. And it was like a re-edited version of it when it did come here. So I just thought that was interesting that it was more of like, a taller than average lizard thing walking on two legs comes out of the sea, and we got to get out of here and stop doing what we're doing because it's only going to piss this thing off more. We need to leave that course of action alone, you know?
Yeah. One movie that I think I shouldn't have probably watched, but I watched that came out this year because I've seen it before, was Animal Farm.
I love Animal Farm. That's a cool one.
Yeah,
I didn't
I've
rewatch
seen-
it, but yeah.
Yeah, I watched it a few times, and I was like, oh, this came out in '54. I gotta watch it again.
Very cool. And you don't see, especially back then, I wasn't expecting to see an animated movie for adults, you know?
Mhm, yeah, that's true too. I didn't think about it that way. I think I watched it in school, so I guess I never really thought about it that way.
The other one that's a horror movie that I'll mention is called Them with an exclamation point. And that one's fantastic. I love that movie. It's about giant ants.
Oh, I've
So-
seen references to it. I've never seen that movie though.
It's really good. It's good for what it is. It's the type of movie that I really love. Okie dokie. Well, I think that's it for the movies.
It was, I would say, a lot of good movies. Considering I don't know, going back this far, you don't, I don't think you expect much. You know what I mean? But it's really good for other reasons. It's not fantastical and it's not, Marvel or whatever, but like I said, they're good for other reasons. Their dialogue and the way that they're shot and the care that goes into the action, because it has to be real, and like you said, the tap dancing earlier, it's like they can't just add that in there. It has to be somebody who is actually good at it. So it's just, I don't know, different but good in their own right. So if you guys, even if you're a little worried about going back and saying, I don't want to watch an old movie in black and white, trust me, they are worth it. Do it.
Yeah, for sure. And some of these are in color, if that really is such a big deal to you. Like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, they showed a little clip of in that Disneyland show that I watched where it was like, and here's on the set from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And they showed like the set of the submarine being attacked by the giant squid. And it was like, man, the set is so mind-blowingly cool that there's this giant robot squid attacking a giant life-size submarine with a guy on top trying to stay on there in the wind and rain and shit, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, just watching him film this is exciting and cool. Like, I gotta see this movie. Okie dokie. 1954, the holiday season. What a wonderful time it was, huh?
Yeah.
Warm and fuzzy, gathered up by the hearth. Oh, it was beautiful. I'm going to miss it. I know I am. But we have to choose something we carry with us into the future where everything else disappears out of your little old memory. I think for myself, I'm going to go ahead and say I said it was one of my favorites, so I have to save Creature from the Black Lagoon.
That's a good one. Something we didn't talk about. Every once in a while, we won't save a pop culture thing. I think I'm actually the only one that does it. But this one's not going to be a pop culture thing. On December 23rd, getting around Christmas time, the first human kidney transplant happened by Dr. Joseph M. Murray. Performed in the world's first successful kidney transplant, and it was on Peter Bent in a Boston Hospital in Massachusetts.
Merry Christmas, Peter.
Yeah, got a new kidney.
Got the gift of life. That's cool. I mean, that's. I am always. I feel like organ transplants and shit like that should only be taking place from like the 70s onward, maybe. You know.
Oh. Yeah, you would think. I read that wrong. So the people who got it actually were twins. It was on Richard and Ronald Herrick, which significantly reduced the risk of transplant just because them being so.
Oh, okay. So it went from one twin to the other.
Yes.
Okay. That makes sense. Still, though, that's really that's so wild to me. That even like the fact that they were doing open heart surgery and stuff like that, I'm just like always
Just
blown away by that.
Cutting people open and giving another body parts and stuff.
Yeah,
It's
and it's like, I mean, it's the human body is at the end of the day, it's like a mechanical thing. You know what I mean? Like this leads to that, and we reconnect those, and now the blood's flowing again. Like you can put in an artificial thing there if it's not gonna. The body will. It's still doing the thing. You know, it's just like if you're changing parts on a car engine or something like that. You know?
Yeah, as long as like the blood type and everything else is.
Yeah, we just gotta sew that thing back.
That's
like,
crazy, and the
yeah,
body.
but to me,
will
it's like
prepare
we need
the
computers
rest.
to tell us the science. You know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think that really is it. Like until computers are around, I don't think there should be those things going on. So it's like the 70s is the earliest, but like it's just not how it was. No, they just went, hey, that's off. I'll just sew that back on. You know, like this thing's blocked. Let me get in there and clean all that shit out, and then now it's open.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've been
Crazy.
doing that kind of thing. Like I'll watch old timey like Frankenstein shit, and they talk about the doctors and them doing, you know, open heart surgeries or I just where they cut people open and do surgery on them and sew them back up in like the 1800s.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah. Think about like Oxford. Like Oxford has
Yeah.
been a college for years, and they literally would just have like cadavers, and they would just like, all right, we're gonna cut it open. And you guys gonna figure out where's what and what's when and everything.
Yeah. Just like a kid taking apart a telephone and putting it back together. Or whatever.
Yeah, that's just how they did it. That's how you got to do it. It's crazy.
Oh yes. Well, that's a good choice. Good thing you're saving some lives, Mark. Good thinking.
Trying.
I'm
what I
more
can
interested in
out here.
watching people get killed by a fish man. But this was such a fun time.
Yes, this was fun. I had a good time. This was a fun year. A lot of cool stuff going on.
And out
Well,
there to
and-
you guys, happy holidays, right? We didn't say that
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, it's true.
Merry
Happy
Christmas,
holidays. Merry
happy
Christmas.
Kwanzaa, happy winter solstice. Those are the three we designated. But no, Merry Christmas out there, everybody. Happy holidays. Have a happy New Year. If you're drinking, don't drive. You'll blind somebody, and there will be attorney's fees to pay.
And much more, probably.
But I know that, see, the worst thing is it's not just a year that we're going to wake up and be pining for tomorrow, but it's like one of the worst feelings is the day after Christmas when you wake up and you're like, oh, all that
Over.
anticipation, all that magic is done. I'm just back to normal life, you
It's
know?
all over. There it
And
goes.
all morning, tomorrow
Santa
morning.
Claus took it with him.
Yep, there it goes. It's all gone. All the decorations are gone immediately when you wake up.
That'd be nice, actually.
Yeah, we'll be okay now that I'm older. As a kid, though, it's like I like leaving that shit up as long as you can.
Yeah.
It's like May.
We always
We'll take it
left
down
like
in.
January.
I'll take it down on my birthday, July. But anyway, when I'm thinking about 1954, but when I'm especially thinking about the holiday season, I know what I'm thinking, and I know that Mark is thinking the same thing. That the both of us wish
we were then.